Hello, elegant listeners and watchers. Welcome to Go, my favorite sports team. I am your Nintendo creator, Disney enthusiast, gamer extraordinaire, Kung Fu Fruit Cub.
And I am your Pokemon friend's least favorite challenge runner, ADEF. And today we're going to be talking about Games Done Quick, or GDQ, a charity speedrunning marathon that's all about raising money for good causes while we have fun in the process. And joining Fu and myself today is your actual host, Tyler.
Yeah, that's me, Tyler Scheid, the sports knower, the one who knows way less about GDQ, so I get to be on the other side of the table on this particular episode. But I will be kind of leading the charge as we carry it through. Thank you guys so much for the wonderful introduction and doing the beginning of the show.
Thank you for having us.
You guys are great. Oh my God. So today, like
we've done this before.
I know, it's crazy. It's all of us creating content, doing intros, talking about things. Wild. But like they said, they're the ones that know GDQ. They both work at Games Done Quick, doing interviewing as well as shouting out donations as they come in, which is really cool. I've heard Fu multiple times audio-wise and just being like, I know that person. when I've seen it. But today we're talking about Games Done Quick, and this is when Games Done Quick is actually happening. This is the Thursday, so there's 2 days left.
2 days left then, yeah.
Yeah, so you can tune in and enjoy that at twitch.tv/GDQ and see both of these wonderful people in action, as well as a bunch of athletes and talents extraordinaire as they raise money for Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah.
But before we get into it, like, what is like Games Done Quick? I know it like started in 2015.
Much earlier.
Or actually earlier.
Okay.
Yeah. 2010. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And they've raised money for several charities, but it's a main highlight platform for speedrunning and gaming in general.
Yeah. So Games Done Quick was born, like a lot of great little gaming things, out of just a tight-knit small community. A group of speedrunners from the Speed Demos Archive, which was an early online speedrunning forum, got together and they raised money at, Fu, correct me if I'm wrong, was the first event CGDQ, Classic Games Done Quick, was the first?
Yes, so they were originally going to be a part of an existing event called MagFest. However, they had some issues at the actual convention center and had to pivot to do the rest of the event that they were trying to hold. But yes, it was called Classic Games Done Quick, and then it ended up being in the what is now a heavily memed thing in our community for this organization, Mike Uyama's mom's basement.
That's true. The first GDQ was in a basement.
And that was Classic Games Done Quick before we had the terms for our summer and winter events. Yeah.
Yeah, so we, humble beginnings, started as Classic Games Done Quick. Fast forward over the years, raising money for a lot of different organizations, but our two flagship events now are Awesome Games Done Quick, which is every winter, and Summer Games Done Quick, which is every summer, so AGDQ and SGDQ respectively. In the last few years, AGDQ has raised money for the Prevent Cancer Foundation, PCF, and in the summer, we typically raise money for MSF, or Doctors Without Borders. The acronym MSF comes from their French name, which is Médecins Sans Frontières. GDQ has grown a lot, and we've gone from raising, a couple $1,000s per event to now, in the last decade, every event is expected to raise north of $2 million.
Wow.
Yes. Incredible.
Yeah. It's really incredible what Games Done Quick has done, especially there were like precursors of Desert Bus for Hope donation drive, which was hosted by Loading Ready Run in 2007. And then there was a charity speedrunners marathon held by the Speed Gamers in March of 2008 as like kind of the precursors to what became Games Done Quick, which I believe initially launched at the convention MagFest.
Yeah, like Fu was saying a bit ago, MagFest, which is a DC area sort of retro music and retro gaming convention.
Did it get dubbed like Games Done Quick after Quake Done Quick from the 1990s?
Probably. I'm not entirely sure of the namesake precisely. Fu and I both joined GDQ at least sort of casually or as runners, but not active staff members in 2014. We just sort of, by pure happenstance, our first GDQ event was the same. Summer Games Done Quick 2014.
It was, but we didn't really know each other at the time.
No, I didn't meet Fu until probably 2020 or 2021. But that was when we sort of entered the picture.
Okay. So how did you guys venture in and find Games Done Quick, like individually?
Fu, you wanna go first?
Sure. Yeah. So kind of it's very similar to what I mentioned in the last episode, if you all heard that. If not, the TLDR is that while I was in school, somebody showed me just a speed run online, and then I was like, whoa, this is incredible. Started following a bunch of speedrunners, made my own Twitch account, etc. And then the people that I was actively watching, they were getting ready for this upcoming summer event. And I was like, what are you going to? Like, what is this? I found out within the time frame of being able to register, and was like, I'm making all these new friends. I'm finding out about this whole new event that's happening. I want to go check it out. And so I went for like a long weekend for SGDQ 2014. If you can see like the whole video here, I've got all my GDQ badges on the wall.
That's so many badges.
It is. SGDQ 2014 is the only one I can't find right now, and I'm a little devastated, but it's okay. But yeah, like getting to attend and like meeting people, it was like this whole, it's really like a whole new world. When you first enter into the scene, it's really cool. And a lot of really awesome people that I've met over the years. So yeah, I was like, okay, great. These are my friends now. And I was like, I just want to keep going to this. It's just like such a nice community to be a part of. And then I was like starting to speedrun and incorporate all that into it. And knowing that I wasn't in a world where I was, because I had a variety of games that I played and a variety of games that I speedran, I wasn't putting in the time to be top of the leaderboard necessarily at the time. Even though I was getting close, there were people who were, you know, if I was in first, or I would be in third, they'd be in first, right? So like if they had submitted, their run was more likely to get accepted into this marathon. So I was happy to just go be a commentator on a couch for some games. You know, we can break down rules for how like GDQ, different things you can do there in a bit. Adef, why don't you talk about like your entry then first?
Yeah, I would say, especially in early Twitch, you know, early to mid 2010s, if you found speedrunning, which I did through just playing Mega Man 1 quickly, like I said in the last episode, I just wanted to find out if people could beat it faster than me, and they absolutely could, and that's how I found speedrunning. In that era, all roads lead to GDQ. Like, especially at that time, if you found speedrunning, you were 1 or 2 clicks away from GDQ. And that it very quickly became the mecca of speedrunning. Like, this is our event. This is where we go to show off what we can do. And the best of the best gather here to put their skills on display. And so it became a very quick goal of mine. When the first GDQ I watched was AGDQ 2013. And it became a very quick goal to like, okay, I need to be in this somehow. And I was fortunate enough, my first GDQ run on stage was SGDQ 2014. My first event was Why I Went. I was 15 and I played Mega Man 1, funnily enough, at SGDQ. And since then, I mean, I fell in love with it. I met so many fast friends, like Fu was saying, and I don't mean fast as a pun there. I mean like friends you make quickly.
Well, they're probably pretty fast.
They are fast as well. And so it's just been a pleasure to grow alongside the organization. Literally, I was so young and have grown up now and participate in a lot of GDQs since then. Fu and I both were there mostly throughout the 2010s as runners or attendees or commentators, but Fu joined as an official member of the organization before I did. So I'll let her, when we get there, speak to that.
Yeah, I'm actually curious, since your onset of first going to GDQ, have you been to like every GDQ since?
I've missed very few. Fu might have missed none.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the badges on the wall that you pointed out. I'm like, holy crap, because there's 2 events a year.
2 events a year since 2014 there's been upwards of 20 events so far, maybe more. And Fu's been to all of them. We have little side events like at TwitchCon and stuff, GDQX. But as far as the main events, I think I've missed 4 or 5.
Yeah, in terms of main events, I've missed 0 since SGDQ 2014.
That is absolutely nuts.
It's the place you go, you see your friends, you make your connections.
Absolutely.
When you start working, you know, with them or even just volunteering, you want to continue that trend. So some of the badges on my wall, I keep pointing to it, are just from when we did have a handful of online events of, during the pandemic. And you can get like virtual badges. So I was like, you know what? I'm still working the events. I'm still going to get a badge. But yeah, like, do we want to go into our kind of like career history with GDQ?
No, I'll do something real quick in the sense that I had never heard of speed running.
Sure.
And I had never heard of GDQ until I literally met Fu and Bird at TwitchCon.
Okay.
Back in 2019.
Okay.
Which is on an emotional level was a very important friendship that I've made since that point, because that's the same year my mom passed away from cancer.
Right.
And so literally May of that year to then going to TwitchCon in October, which I hadn't been to TwitchCon, I think the year prior, because it was in San Jose, and I've gone ancillarily that. And it was when I also got laid off from my position that I was working at the time. And so it was like ultimately a really rough year. And the fact that I even made it to TwitchCon was because I worked with a charity fundraising platform. It was before I actually worked with them. They just asked me to come and work their stage, which is really interesting because it kind of ties into what you guys do with GDQ now. So I have that relatability. And so sure enough, I'm walking around and Fu leaves her signing at a merch company called Design by Humans. Like literally had a booth and got up because she saw me because her partner knew of me and had introduced her to Mark's videos and things. And so since then, I developed a really good friendship with Fu and Bird. That's how I met you.
Yeah.
And that's how I discovered this whole world of speedrunning that I'd never heard about.
Sure.
Never discovered.
Yeah.
Much like a lot of people, I mean, why we have the podcast is they're introducing people to sports. They have opened my doors to this whole section of gaming and sportsmanship that I never, ever knew existed.
Right.
And so being able to have that development, and then because of that connection, became interested in GDQ and met all of you guys. And I mean, the welcomingness that exists among this community has been wonderful. The good that is being done is amazing. And that's why I wanted to take this moment to kind of highlight GDQ as a whole, is because the amazing people and the amazing work that's being done. And so from that, now you can go ahead and take over and talk about what you're going to talk about, Phil.
Oh, sure. I do agree that like we're a lot, like so much net good is coming out of GDQ events, and that's why Adef and I'm sure he would agree, and that we are in positions where we're like, we come here, it is a pleasure to be able to do the things that we do for GDQ, and there's a reason we continue to work with them and come back for these events, because we enjoy the type of work we get to do, and we enjoy being a part of such a great charity event. And then, there's other benefits like seeing our friends and things like that. But it's been a fun ride.
Yeah. And so ancillarily, I feel like I felt that when I met you guys, in the sense of like how you got welcomed into the GDQ community and that event and everything. So that's why I felt like it related.
Yeah. It's funny. Maybe it's by virtue of the fact that Fu and I have been around the organization for a long time, and also we've integrated ourselves into it in many ways. I mean, Fu has done runs and a lot of commentary and hosting, basically similar to how a telethon will have somebody read donations out. Fu has often been a host or a donation reader, sometimes they are called. Basically, during the speed runs, if you've ever seen a GDQ run, if there's a pause in the game or a sort of break in the action, the runner will often say, "And now's a good time for donations." And basically, the host, who is literally hosting the broadcast, will then come over the hot mic and say, "We've got $500 from blah, 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 blah." And they say, blah, 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 blah. And what an amazing donation that would be. And so Fu, I correct me if I'm wrong, Fu, but was that sort of your first foray into like a more official capacity with GDQ?
Yes. Yeah. So I was just an attendee since from SGDQ 2014 and on. And a couple years in, I had, made connections. I was making friends, like people around the community. And I think I was like, I was friends enough with Spike, where we were talking, Spike Vegeta, who is another member of our team who has been along. He has more tenure than we do with GDQ overall. And he's such a good human being. But he and I were speaking at one point, and he was still volunteering to be a host of the type. So there's a number of roles. There's like all of our staff roles, and then we have a bunch of volunteer roles with a whole team that helps with volunteer selections. And then obviously we have a whole games committee that also helps select all of the people who are submitting games to be speedrun and all of that. So there's a whole facet there. But when hosting was a thing, and I remember being like, maybe I should try hosting. And Spike's like, "Why have you never done that?" I'm like, "I don't know." And so I volunteered, and I was fortunate enough to get accepted. It's I would say one of the more competitive volunteer roles that you can get. at GDQ because I think of your like very direct involvement with the actual broadcast. But I started doing that in 2017. So I had a couple of events under my belt. And then by the following year, I think I'd been maybe 2 or 3 events of hosting. And then in 2018, I was speaking with somebody who was working there at the time, and they wanted to talk to me about another event. But I also mentioned, I was like, hey, I see that you have this whole like interview team. It seems really cool. I'd love to just like essentially put my name in the hat. And they were like, you know what, actually, we were thinking of testing out some new people, and your name had come up. So thank you for letting us know. And again, it's a lot of like making connections in like any career, basically making connections, right place, right time, that kind of thing. They tested me out and with a couple other people, and then kept 2 of us on for our what was called interview team, now was called the interstitials team or interstitials talent, which is a weird word that not a lot of people use, but it's the in-between content, right?
Yeah, those were like, didn't you both like host different shows that were called hotfix shows?
Yeah,
right?
so we hotfix is basically what GDQ does when they're not doing one of their big events.
Like our daily shows.
Yeah, a daily speedrunning programming that you can catch on their channel, and Fu and I both hosted shows there for a while.
Yeah, which I think is really cool because GDQ is its big event, but they also have interstitial stuff to highlight the essential like parts of speedrunning that people don't always see, meeting the people, so you can actually keeps that exposure kind of year round.
Right. And the team that Fu and I are both on now, the interstitials team, is specifically we work to orchestrate anything that happens in between the speed runs, because it's a 24-hour speedrunning event. You have to coordinate, okay, this runner needs to be here at this time, we need to have their game set up in time for them to go at 9 p.m. But in between 8:45 and 9 p.m., when it's in between the 2 runs, what do we show the broadcast?
Mm-hmm.
We don't want it to be nothing because we want to keep people's attention. And
yeah,
so that's Fu and I's
team.
team.
A break screen.
Yeah, we have break screens, but we try as much as possible for there to be something engaging happening.
Yeah.
And Fu and I are in charge of orchestrating what that content is. And so we are on the used to be called interview team because the team was born out of a desire to do traditional sports interviews with our runners. Hey, you just ran Mario 64. Can you tell me what that experience was like? And nowadays, we've transitioned into more of a broad, like, what can we do in that space that's fun and engaging? And so we might have game shows. We might talk to 5 runners at once and then have them play Pictionary or something like that. And so that is what Fu and I do.
Do you in that same category, are there like sponsors, like sponsor ads?
We will occasionally have sponsored obligations in our slots. For the past few years, our daily recaps, which are a segment we do every day to talk about what happened today for people who missed it, that was sponsored. And we'll have, the occasional, at the end of the day, anybody who works in charity will tell you half the job, if not more, is writing grants and trying to get funding, because to have a big event that raises money for a third party like MSF or PCF, it's very expensive because we're renting out, we have an expo hall or a ballroom at a hotel, as well as hundreds of hotel rooms and attendee space. That's very expensive.
Right.
And so how do we fund that? How do we fund the ability to have these amazing producers and talent and huge computers that run the stream? And so we will occasionally have dedicated sponsored segments where, Fu or I will have 5 minutes to talk to you about, Stride gum or whatever. I don't know.
I would say that's, it's, I would almost say like a bit newer for our team compared to other spaces within GDQ. Like, for example, the hosting team, the volunteer team, they often read out sponsored ad. Like there's different, things that sponsors can do to get featured on the stream, whether it's on the broadcast, whether it's like a logo in the corner or an ad read or a video and then I think like we would be kind of considered the next tier up because we'd be making more unique content around that. So I think it's been a bit newer of a foray, but something that we've done a couple of times now. Yeah,
it's a little rare, but it does happen.
Yeah, the other thing I find that's actually really relatable to baseball, in a sense, at least old baseball, not currently with like the pitch clock and how they sped up the games, is because GDQ is both an in-person event and a live broadcast.
Yes.
And so you have the stage, which I would say is like the playing field of what's happening, where people who are watching the game on TV or Twitch are seeing the action. But also there's all kinds of different things that are happening throughout this event where people can go and like to compare to baseball, sometimes places have like speed pitching things or the kids zone. And GDQ has like, we were talking about in the last episode, they have game test stations where people would get together. They have an arcade room.
We have arcades. We have an escape room, because at the end of the day, we're sort of transforming into like a mini convention. And so we want things for our attendees to do, because the staff and the runners of the actual games make up a rather small percentage of the actual attendee base of people going to GDQ, because the vast majority of people are going to either see the runs and or see their friends. And so we want
even running themselves.
Yes. So we want them to have exciting things to do. So we're going to have at this SGDQ for the first time ever, we have an artist alley, we have a dev alley. We've got escape room, we've got board game room, we've got rooms where you can just meet up and hang out with people.
There's often people just like playing music in the hallways. I know that there's going to be like another music-based thing there. Yeah, like you said, panels, tournaments. Arcade's awesome. Yeah, so it's really cool, like, and that we're continuing to like expand those areas and try new things. So we love that.
If you're in the Minneapolis area, and when this is coming out, there's 2 days left. If you want to come by, see if there might be in-person tickets left. I don't know.
This is the first event that we are actually offering on-site registration. So we've typically had a cap, probably due to things like just available space, hotel rooms, etc. But we've wanted to kind
capacity.
of like find ways, capacity, and we wanted to find ways to expand around that. So we are offering more registration styles nowadays. So yeah, you can actually come to a GDQ now and get registered if you want to come check out. The last 2 days, they tend to have a lot of really big hitter games.
Last 2 days are pretty big.
Yeah, and cool. Having worked in charity production, which I don't know if a lot of people who are watching this podcast happen, when you're running a live stream in general or a broadcast of any kind or even a charity event, the majority of fundraising occurs at the beginning and at the end. Mm-hmm. It's like you have the opening push and then the closing push. The in between is a lot harder because there's a lot of different things. Like there's fatigue, there's other things that are going on, and people aren't there necessarily of like, oh, this is the big thing, and then there's the lull. It's kind of the same thing that happens at sports events. Like the end of the game is so exciting because it's figuring out the result, while at the beginning it's like, oh, what's crazy is gonna happen in the opening kickoff or the opening pitch and different things like that. And so a lot of times it gets overlooked in the middle, but I think there's a lot to be had, especially with GDQ in person and online, that there's always different things happening. It's always a different category. And it's like, there's something for everybody in person. The fact that you guys have artist alleys, and there's so many different ways to support. I mean, you can donate online, you can attend in person.
There's merch.
There's like,
you can donate prizes. So we set a lot of goalposts saying that like with fatigue or like the kind of flow of our influx of donations that we get, there are ways in which we like try to help mitigate that or encourage people to like continue support throughout the week. And we have like really generous people just like donating prizes that people can win all throughout the week. Staff can't win prizes. It's really sad because they're really awesome. But understandable. But so there's a ton of those that are featured. So we work in tandem with another piece that you could say is also like in the interstitials category of a prize team that will like come on and do segments as well in between runs and showcases to like feature the prizes that we have. We also have like bonus games where it's like, hey, if we raise this much by this time, we will put in this extra really hype game. So we should have 1 or 2 more of those coming up in the next 2 days. We do all kinds of incentives, things like that. Like, hey, you can see this person complete the game just from beginning to end as fast as possible, or we can upgrade it and like add in this really extra hard boss on the side or do this type of thing. So all kinds of cool incentives that occur. So like that, all of that kind of helps bring in donations and encourage people to like continue to support the charities. Cause I know that there's sometimes charities, I'm going off on a tangent.
No, go ahead.
Real quick. That like with a charity like Doctors Without Borders, it can be something that feels a little bit more separated from yourself as an individual. And this is something that I spoke about with the CEO that you'll hear on Saturday. About just like, it can be harder to feel like it relates to you personally. And so maybe you're like less likely to understand or empathize to and that like directly relates to donation amounts coming in. But there's like so much going on in this world right now that helping support communities everywhere is really, really important, and showing that we are empathetic and that like I have Starbucks today, but I can forego Starbucks, a couple times or whatever to like send a donation out, like, it can make such a bigger it can make such a huge impact that you just don't initially consider. And so finding ways to, like, get that messaging out, I think is really important with any charity, no matter what they're doing around the world to just, like, help in times like these, I would
Well,
say.
yeah, and especially with Doctors Without Borders and stuff, it's about having sympathy and empathy for other people. Sympathy is the
Yeah.
terminology if you cannot relate to it. Empathy is where you have a relatable experience where you can feel for that actual event or hardship. And one of the biggest things that I've realized in working in the charity space is both of those things are the key things to key into, but also there's things that relate to you that you may not even actively realize. I currently have a friend who was a travel nurse for a number of years who actually works for the government, is overseas right now in Africa working at the hyper-resistance tuberculosis ward in Africa. And the fact that it's becoming resistant to so many different drugs and things like that, getting people out there to try and help mitigate this disease or find out new information. These are things that Doctors Without Borders do. They go out and treat people in areas where medical stuff is not available.
Located in over 70 countries and working on things like like you're saying, Tyler, like, if I think about things that they're doing, there's this whole category that they do to help with women, for example, all around the world, and some of, like, even their basic needs, like, things that we can do to support, like, education or hygiene or, health in those ways, that they're there on the ground being a part of, and it's really incredible.
Their work on, whether it be multi-drug resistant TB or fighting HIV/AIDS, or any health humanitarian crisis around the world says nothing of the fact that obviously the elephant in the room is wartime efforts. For better or for worse, there's no shortage these days of people who didn't ask to be a part of a crisis or didn't ask to be a part of a disaster that was man-made, and Doctors Without Borders is boots on the ground, ready to go. And so it's an incredible organization that it's funny because as creators, I think a lot of times we are, we can be paid to, for lack of a better word, shill for this or that. And, so be it, it pays the bills. And so long as you do it in a somewhat ethical way, it's really not a problem. But it may sound like we're quote unquote shilling for Doctors Without Borders, but we're not. I mean, this is a remarkable charity organization that we really care about. And there's a reason GDQ continues to partner with them and continues to raise money for them year after year, which is that this is something we really believe in. And I think it's something easy to get behind as well. Like you talked about sympathy and empathy. I do not think it should be very difficult to sympathize with the fact that you just don't want to lose your loved ones. And whether that be to disease or war or whatever it is.
Watching people suffer in general.
Right. Doctors Without Borders is trying really hard to save people in crisis and to help mitigate crisis as well. And Doctors Without Borders is apolitical. The Without Borders is pretty specific. They don't answer to any government. They don't answer to any governing body other than the needs of the people. And so, this is a very apolitical issue, right? This is just people trying to help people who are sick or dying. It's pretty black and white to me.
Well, and it's a big thing for me too, is the conversation around this is like, nobody wants to watch people suffer. Nobody wants to do this. And so it's one of those things that we as a community and what the speedrunning community is doing here is stepping up in a social responsibility thing.
Sure.
They're thinking beyond their own needs, their own self. And it's something that's really cool about it because it's one thing to be a speedrunner and being these incredibly skilled at all of this, but to be able to do an event, which is the flagship event, and it's not really the main thing it's about. It's about doing good and raising money for the world. And that in of itself, the instant I heard about it, my respect for the various people and for the speedrunning community grew immensely, which is why I was adamant, even though I may have had one minor bad experience with GDQ because I donated and they didn't read my donation. Totally fine. I'm okay with that. It happens. Things are made. And to me, it's less of a big deal that it wasn't read. I just saw it as a potential issue for the future if somebody donated a large amount and something wasn't read, that they could lose that potential donation. It wasn't about me feeling bad. It was about the fact that I felt like it would hurt the overall fundraising efforts.
Sure.
And that's the biggest thing. The amount of money that's raised and the stuff that they do is incredible, and mistakes are made across the board when stuff like that happens. But the work that's being done is without a doubt so much bigger than that small thing. The stuff that's being done, both highlighting the speedrunning community, the diversity and inclusion that GDQ goes out of their way for, to include people from all different backgrounds, all different like identities, is phenomenal. And the fact that they highlight it. I mean, when I tuned into GDQ, one of the biggest things that I saw in there was like trans rights or human rights just spammed across there.
Speedrunning is a very queer space.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly. I think it'd be very fascinating to dive into why that is. I truly do not know. I think it's just something about niche internet communities. Often, you know, when a niche internet community is sort of at the edges of what people talk about, it sort of gravitates people who are themselves in an identity that is often belittled or often pushed to the fringes. And so we're very fortunate to have a lot of people from different walks of life in the speedrunning community, and by extension in GDQ, whether on staff or in runners or attendees. And so a big, very central part of GDQ's mission is ensuring that those people feel included and appreciated, because gaming as a whole can sometimes tend online to be bigoted, at least somewhat. And so we try to be a small slice of hope in that.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest reasons with that, and it's also the reason why this podcast exists, is there is some level of ostracization that people will feel in different areas. Yeah. And sport is a big one. There's a lot of issues that are going on in sport. There's still discussions being talked about it. We won't talk about it on this podcast because no matter what happens, you're cursed if you do, you're cursed if you don't, no matter what your take is.
Sure.
And so it's something where you want to be able to feel included in something. You want to be felt welcomed, felt a part of.
That's what everyone wants.
Yes.
That's what every human being at the baseline. I don't care if you're a billionaire or not. Every human being at some core part of their heart just wants to have friends. Like that's the bottom line of human existence.
They want to feel accepted.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Everyone wants that. From childhood, you know, you want your parents to accept you. You want your friends and siblings to respect you. You want your colleagues as an adult or the people in a space you appreciate. That's human nature, baby.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's something to be said for like even the competitive nature of speedrunning. It's like almost being accepted not only in a way where you are supported and welcomed in the community, but also like to show the things that you can do to show your skill. Like to kind of bring it back around full circle. Like there's something about that being like they accept me as being, you know, I have world record or I've made my name. Like there's even people who just like glitch hunting in video games, and we like paying homage to those people as well and being like, these people have discovered these really cool things within games to absolutely alter the way in which people can speedrun them. So I think it's really cool to include.
Yeah, and that's something we didn't actually touch on in the last episode because we ran out of time, was simply the support system that exists and the strategy that exists as people explore and find new glitches or new pathways to run something faster. I know Mario Kart World just came out, and seeing the insane pathing that exists to get the time trial races is wild. And that game just came out, and people are like finding every way to be as efficient as possible to get from start to finish the fastest.
Tyler's watching Bird.
I watch Bird. Yes, I do. And so it's just really cool to me, like from that standpoint. And we talked about it in the last episode of like the evolution of grabbing a game and people at GDQ actively taking this game nobody's played and seeing how fast they can get it in that week long, and collaborating, because it's not about I want to be the fastest. Yes, that exists, and competitiveness exists. There's some level of competition and some level of like I want to beat you, and there's in that becomes that animosity and animalistic nature of like I'm better than you. But at the same time, the thing that exists with GDQ is everybody is rooting for somebody to hit something new. It's about beating your own time more than it is about beating other people's times. Yes, that exists within the community, but the support that exists that I've seen from all of you guys is when somebody is just learning a game, the top people in that game are like, oh my God, sweet, I want to show you how to do this.
Right.
Like,
well,
that's
very
what's really
communal.
Cool.
And Fu touched on glitch hunters, and you talked about finding new strategies. That is a very communal endeavor because, you know, as you saw with Mario Kart World, the more people working on the problem, the faster it gets solved.
Yes.
So like Mario Kart World had millions of players day one, and a lot of those players are trying to beat the game quickly. You're naturally going to develop strategies much more quickly than if 5 people were looking for them. And so I think of something like Ocarina of Time is notoriously a very broken game. It has a lot of glitches that aid speedrunning and make speedrunning very fast, but that's only possible because there are dedicated, intelligent minds working collaboratively to solve those problems. You know, a lot of the biggest glitches in speedrunning history were only found as a result of people working together.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, although there is that competition aspect, and undeniably it is an important part of the sport, like, you know, world record holders pushing each other, you know, first place and second place pushing each other to push the game deeper, even if, you know, sometimes there's some friendly rivalries or some not so friendly rivalries, just like in sports. You know, for every, I don't know, what's a good analogy here? Roger Federer and Nadal, there's a more heated relationship where 2 people maybe don't like each other so much, but they're still pushing it forward and they're still contributing something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are Federer and Nadal friendly? I think so, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time thinking of people that aren't friendly, because I just think about, as a person who's big into sports and stuff like that, I think of the good stuff. Like you've got the Jordan Kobe, or the LeBron and Kobe, or LeBron like working with Dwayne Wade. But there's also like the people like Ben Simmons and LeBron James. They don't really like each other. Granted, LeBron's way better than Ben Simmons, but I won't even get into that category.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar with the WNBA. I can think of an example.
Oh, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, things like that exist. Also, we call ourselves the official Caitlin Clark podcast because we constantly are updating on it. And the reason we do that is because Caitlin Clark has brought so much more attention to women's sports.
She's amazing.
Anybody that we know of in the last decade at least. And so we've been highlighting and talking about her stats and how good she is and why she's evolving the game and how much attention she's bringing in. And that's not to say Angel Reese doesn't. She's the most followed WNBA player. And like what she does on the social media is a great thing to promote the WNBA. As a player, less so than Caitlin Clark, but that's a whole other conversation. It's like if for example, Ludwig, when he did the Fast 50 event.
Yeah.
Big name in the creative space, and also a speedrunner in his own right. He's a very good gamer. His event versus GDQ, it's a different dichotomy, the way that he did it versus the way GDQ does it.
Right.
Both were charity events.
I think that's things. There was some controversy when Fast 50 originally arose because people love to online, casual observers love to frame anything as a competition, even when it's not. And I think Ludwig and his team worked very hard to make up for some of the accidental shortcomings of maybe who was cast in the event or whatever. But it was clear that Ludwig and his team cared a lot about raising money for charity and cared a lot about putting their best foot forward. And I think that's evidenced by a lot of the steps that he and his team have taken for Fast 52, which is the sequel event that's happening sometime this year. They've taken a lot of steps to mitigate some of the complaints that people had about Fast 50. But what I would encourage people to remember is that at the end of the day, both of these things are for charity, and viewing them as competition or something. And Ludwig said himself, he's like, I'm not trying to replace GDQ. I just am inspired by it and want to do something. And
it's also highlighting the speedrunning space and the gaming space.
And that's great. That's
way.
Amazing. I was at Fast 50 the whole time. It was remarkable. I thought it was a well-run event that Tyler was there too.
Yeah.
It was awesome to see speedrunning get a highlight in any sense.
Well, and it also was bridging that gap of people who don't know that maybe have not heard of GDQ.
Exactly. Yeah. Bringing new eyes.
Yeah. I was like, I agree. I think these are excellent pathways in order to show hey, again, I call it a niche of gaming because it is. It's not like a thing that most people do, and why, we were talking about it in definition earlier because there's still plenty of people who've never heard of it. And so I think showing people this part of gaming and the things that we're doing in the space is important and very cool. And it's great to see people who have the means to have a bigger audience, continue to give or put eyes into this world. So
yeah,
I agree with that.
Well, and we talked about the collaboration for finding glitches as well, and something we also missed last time is you were going to showcase the evolution of button mashing.
Yeah,
and the actual athleticism that is involved in that because you have the controller.
So I brought a controller because I want to, this is sort of tangential to what we're talking about right now, but directly related to what we talked about last episode, which is, speedrunning as a sport, speedrunning as an athletic endeavor. And so in a lot of sports, as Tyler was talking about earlier, the physiology and the sports medicine, or the understanding of how the body works, can often change how the sport is perceived. Like, understanding of VO2 max and the ability to maximize your VO2 max completely changes how you train your body as a runner. Or, the way in which the baseball is pitched has changed wildly. Well, not that wildly.
Well, the focus is different. It's less about velocity now. It's about spin rate.
Right. So or the change of the knuckleball over time, right?
Correct.
The way in which this key way you interface with the sport. Pitching is the first thing that happens at the beginning of any play in baseball is the ball is pitched. So in my mind, speed running is, your interface with the controller is a big part of how you interface with the sport. So just as an example of how this kind of thing can develop in a very athletic way is button mashing. So when you're playing a game very casually, if you're playing Mario Party with your friends or something, excellent, I can see myself. If you're playing a Mario Party or something, you might be tempted in a mashing game to just, use your thumb and press the button over and over and over again. And this is fine, and you can, then over time, you might shift to a different grip, because over time you might realize, if I shift my fingers around, I can do this a little better. So you might do what it became standard, which is 2 fingers on top of the thumb to mash a little bit more quickly. Or you might switch to a different finger. Some people might do this. Over time, people develop.
I literally cross my hand over.
What do you do, Phil?
I'm left-handed, so I cross my hand over.
Like a claw?
Let go of the other joystick.
There's also, over time, people realize that
back and forth versus up and down.
Rubbing can be fast. To me, the most interesting development came in the double mash. So the reason I'm showing all of this is just to showcase you that the interface with the game is through this. And it's a physical apparatus that requires you to have, you need to be accurate and you need to be quick a lot of times, right?
You can still injure yourself too.
Yeah. People, I highly encourage anybody, especially in very physical games like Wind Waker, which is the game I'm going to mention
or
now.
even Mario Party, the old school, spinning,
So
Beat Saber.
Beat Saber for sure, wrist
taking
motion.
care of your wrists and your fingers. When I was doing my biggest grind in Mega Man 1 in the summer of 2019, I was icing my hands every day because I was doing 8-hour sessions of a game that is very mash intensive and very precision intensive. And if I didn't ice my hands, I would have pains.
Mm-hmm.
So the double mash is sort of where mashing came to naturally over time was there were games where people needed to be mashing 15 or 16 times a second consistently for 30 or 45 seconds straight. So instead of mashing one-handed, they might place their thumbs over the button and move the controller into their thumbs. So
oh yeah,
I can mash much more quickly this way.
And that whole motion, you've got your elbows, your bicep in, your triceps are activating.
Very
you've got
famous
your finger strength.
There is a famous, albeit somewhat infamous, picture of speedrunner Linkus, who is a very talented Zelda speedrunner in his own right, of him showing off that his mashing arm is huge and his non-mashing arm is tiny. It's actually a hilarious picture. But he genuinely is jacked on his mashing arm just by virtue of he needs it to be.
Editors, you have a project. I need you to find this
picture. It's on Twitter somewhere.
If one of you find it and can send it before this episode comes out, that'd be awesome too.
If you just Google image search Linkus arms, you'll probably find it.
But
anyway,
yes, I already found it.
Okay, yeah, if you can send it to me.
All the love
episode.
to Linkus. He's a delightful guy. But yeah, so in a game like Wind Waker, where you do need to be mashing 15 plus times a second, the double mash is not only an easier way to do that, but it also, now there's a higher skill ceiling. Where okay, if I'm able to do that consistently, right? Now it's not just about a burst of speed. Now it's about can I hold this? Now we're talking about not just speed, but endurance.
Yes.
Which is another athletic.
Well, and even in that, you have to also understand you need to breathe.
Yeah.
So that whole process, you can easily get muscle fatigue if you're not sending enough oxygen there and things like that. So there's a whole dichotomy that exists. And the greatest thing, and this is why I love GDQ, is in your guys' production, when games have more technical stuff, a lot of times there's actually a camera showing that person's controller or things like that. And some games have their own, arcade games. You get your whole arcade cabinet type controller connection and various other stuff. So that's also really cool.
Yeah, and we have the sort of, at GDQ, we'll have people on the couch commentators. And those
we didn't talk about roles. Right.
Yeah, we're fitting the puzzle pieces in.
Yeah.
The couch commentators serve to explain the more technical aspects as they happen, because when you're the runner, sometimes it's not possible to commentate and play at the same time if what you're doing requires a high degree of accuracy.
It's also why you have the people shouting out donations, like when there's opportunity, when they're hyper fixated and doing other stuff.
Sometimes a runner will have to say, like, I need a moment of silence for this trick because it's like so intense and like you're saying, frame perfect, or just the inputs are so intense that they need so much focus that like nobody talk.
And then the eruption of the crowd when they succeed is incredible to see also.
I think
the crowd reactions in general, I think, are
such
amazing. And GDQ, Adef, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to cap the speedrunning as a sport discussion, in my opinion, look, are we running a marathon? No. Are we
in a way you are?
Sure. Are we jumping 18 feet across a sand pit? No. But we are doing highly precise, repeatable actions. A frame perfect trick literally means, so like, let's say my game runs at 60 FPS. That means it's refreshing 60 times a second. That means I have one frame to do the thing I need to do, or I fail. And the repeatability and sheer consistency on display, on a stage no less, in front of tens of thousands of people, is remarkable. To watch people casually hit frame perfect trick after frame perfect trick, it's remarkable. Because when you think about the actual timing, it's not just, okay, it's frame perfect. There's a travel distance for the button. There's a travel from the neurons from my brain to my fingers.
From the response time for the controller to even get processed.
So it's like, it's the optical thing coming from the TV into my eyes. My brain processes it, tells me it's time to press the button. The signal goes to my fingers. My thumb has to physically travel a distance. The button travels a distance, and then the signal to the TV. All of that calculation is happening instantaneously in their mind because they've practiced over and over and over again to know, okay, when Mario leg go there, I press A. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, and also that's 1/60th of a second. We're not talking you have a second.
No.
It's 1/60th.
Yes.
I'm thinking of like some of the GOATs like ZFG coming in and has, well over a decade of speedrunning, even just a single game for most of like his kind of storied career. And so it's like so ingrained into his system that he can the things that he can do in a game like Ocarina of Time nowadays is incredible. And so we are fortunate to have some of those people coming on a stage, not only like those who have as much history as ZFG, but then people who have, even within the last 3 years, come about and been like, I have figured out these ways, or they just have this aptitude to be able to game, even if it's just a specific style of game, in an incredible way. Like we even had, or like 2-player 1 controller is a very interesting category where you have two people who have to coordinate at the same time while using a single controller to move a character around. And like, it looks like when we've had world record holders together, or the people who are at the very top of the leaderboard, it looks like a single person just running a game very fluidly. Like there's all kinds of really cool instances like that to show just people at the absolute top of their game. It's awesome. And and I think I mentioned this earlier, but the moments when, because occasionally we do get people setting a new world record during the actual marathon.
Yep.
And those moments are so cool to hit. And then we always touch upon them later. And yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, and that's, to bring it back to GDQ, this is like a lot of these best in the world, all these tricks, the athleticism that exists. This is kind of the pinnacle event where a lot of people are highlighted.
Yeah.
So it's a massive thing. So it's not just that you're raising money for good, but you're also seeing the best of the best in the world playing their game.
This is our Super Bowl.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have like, there's a lot of diversity, especially nowadays in the event, where it's like, hey, we want to focus on things. It's like we have this hybrid of like, okay, if we have the best coming in, we want them to showcase these things. And then we also are more accepting now of like, if you have something really unique that you want to bring into the space, if you're not like the top of the leaderboard in the any percent category, but you have a really unique thing that you've been working on that shows off skill in another subset, like we're more open to seeing that too. So you'll see this whole really cool mix of strategy and skill and stuff all over the marathon now.
For example, this year at GDQ, Kung Fu Fruit Cup herself is spotlighting Beat Saber.
Yes.
That will have already happened.
I know, but you have done it, and they could probably go back and find it, which could be really cool.
Hopefully I did a good job.
I believe in you. I've seen you play, as long as your wrist is good, because as athletes do, they get injured and have to play through injury sometime. Fu has been doing that.
Yeah, this is going to be Foo's flu game. The GDQ Beat Saber is going to be the flu game for Foo, for sure.
Yeah. If I can suggest one thing for GDQ that I think would be really cool, people talk about this all the time with the Olympics, having the average person go up against the best in the world to see the absolute difference.
Something we've had in the past is average person gets taught by best in the world. That's been fun. Yeah. I think sometimes the struggle with getting average person v best in the world is like it's such a blowout so quickly that it's like, how do you fill more than 5 minutes? Because like the difference, this is going to sound conceited, but the difference between the average, let's say Ocarina of Time, the difference between the average Ocarina of Time player and ZFG is so wide that like it's not even good television.
So my thought process on this is having somebody who's just generally good at games, like speedrunning in general. Yeah. So like if Bird, for example, your partner, or me versus you in a different game, and it's just one level, like a good semblance of that could be literally Mario Maker, somebody who's really good, has never played that level before, versus a person who's played Mario Maker and also never played that level, but they don't speedrun it. So for example, because I've played Mario games and I've touched Mario Maker a little bit, it'd be like me versus Panga.
Sure.
On a map. That in and of itself, because it's a short thing, you can see the distinct skill difference.
Lud kind of did this at Fast 50 with Lil Curbs, and watching Lil Curbs versus people who are good gamers but not proficient Mario Maker players in their own right. Meanwhile, Lil Curbs has beat the hardest levels in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, he blew them out of the water.
I know, but it was really funny to watch.
It is very entertaining. It is very entertaining.
Because even Lud was in that event, I believe.
Was,
I think he finished like second or third. Yeah. Because they just had to figure out how to do the shell jump, which I've done. Insanely difficult trick to do, but I've done the shell jump.
Sure.
Nice.
And then there's other jumps that exist. So I've always liked that dichotomy, because I feel like there's an opportunity there where people yell about it for the Olympics. So you can see somebody try and run the 100 meters versus...
I think with the Olympics, it makes more sense maybe because like the 100 meter looks really fast. Like, yes, Usain Bolt is incredibly fast, but a lot of people have never run track and field themselves. So they have no vantage point of like, okay, is sub 11 seconds quick?
Yeah.
So watching like, you know, a high school varsity athlete run the 100 alongside Usain Bolt, you'd be like, oh my God, like he's incredible.
Yeah.
So I do see where you're coming from. And I encourage people, I mean, you know, Foo and I are big proponents right now at GDQ of like, we want the show to be as cool and interesting as possible. If you're at home right now and you're a speedrunner, or maybe you know one or something, and you have an idea for a cool submission that incorporates, what if it is average Joe versus, you know, major league player? If you have that idea and you can bring it to fruition, submit it. We have open submissions before every event. There's an open submission process before every GDQ.
3 or 4 months before, just so you all are aware, because a lot of times people will miss that submission window. It's only open for about 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. The one for AGDQ will probably open up sometime in August or September.
Is there social media where people can follow to see when that announcement
GDQ
happens?
has Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram. Just look up Games Done Quick on any of those platforms and you'll see ready-to-go information of, hey, the stream is live, or hey, submissions
There's a Discord server.
Yeah, there is a Discord server you can join.
Yeah, and all those will have pings or posts about like, hey, this is when this window's open, etc. Or you can go to the website as well, gamesdonequick.com or gdq.gg.
That is sort of the Bible of like all our social media, all the event info. I encourage anybody who's interested in any of the things we talked about today to go to gdq.gg for information, not just about the event, but about the organization.
And
or
I
just
also
pick up
know,
a game, see how fast you can play it. Or watch GDQ and see if there's a game where you're like, wow, that looks like it would be really fun to try to play fast. And then just do it. That's how people get into speedrunning. There's not like a thing that you have to do to become a speedrunner, aside from playing the game. And then just trying to play it a little faster. That's it. That's all you do. And then if you want to use a timer, great. And then if you want to like get more involved, great.
And I know we're running out of time. You guys got meetings and stuff you got to get to. So I'm going to open the floor for any last things that you can think of that you wanted to mention about GDQ, anything like that, so we can kind of wrap up this episode. But again, I feel like we could talk about this for like 7 episodes at this point. So
yeah, it's like we work for them. So weird.
Well, and it's also, I'm fascinated by this entire world that I've never been a part of and have just started to see in the last 5 years.
I have more sports versus speedrunning stuff, but it's not GDQ related.
Maybe you can do it on your YouTube channel.
Maybe. I was going to talk about minute barriers. I think that, you know, again, if any of this interests you, the event is going on right now. twitch.tv/GDQ. We'd love to have you. You don't need to donate to watch. If you just want to enjoy it or consume speedrunning for the first time, please do. We would love to have you.
Yeah. Also, you could tune in right now and we might be on camera. There's a chance that you could be like, oh,
We're
no.
Time travelers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's pretty amazing. Also, a good thing to remember is that 100% of your donations do go toward the charities that we support always. We make up our money in other ways. Like, thank you if you all or decide to sub or throw bits or whatever. Like, that helps support GDQ. Or the sponsors that we have coming in, but 100% of your donations will always go toward the charity that we are featuring. So it's something to remember if you do decide to come in and you're like, this is cool. Like, I do want to help people around the world, and you donate to MSF or similar spots. And we just appreciate anybody who wants to like be involved, tune in, check it out. Yeah,
go attend in person.
Yeah, come
yeah,
attend.
Or you can attend in person.
The other thing I will say that not only that, donations generally, especially in the US, are tax deductible, so you can use that for tax breaks.
Deductible.
There are other countries where it actually has even more of a benefit. Some people have jobs where they'll cover that donation cost and basically match your donation. I think in Canada, there's a whole program about it. But also there are other free ways where you can support. You can share the stream. You can just talk about it, highlight it. There's different clips. Share the donation link. If you can't afford to donate, you might know somebody who can. There are different ways to do that to get people to donate. Yell at people being like, hey, there's this really cool event. People that have money be like, hey, there's this really cool event. You should donate. So there's a lot of ways to support the program and support GDQ. Viewership, making sure there's attendance and doing the various things that exist and supporting the creators that build and make it like you two. Is a huge thing because I know it gets talked about a lot. So thank you guys so much again for being on for the podcast. Thank 2 episodes when we had originally planned for 1 is insane. Yeah. If you want to go check out Fu, twitch.tv/Kung Fu Fruit Cup. That link's going to be shown on the video. ADEF is ADEF everywhere, twitch.tv/ADEF, ADEF. Very easy to find them. They're both phenomenal creators in their own right and wonderful contributors to GDQ. Definitely want to support them as much as possible, but mainly support the charity and the good work that they do with GDQ.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, this was really fun.
Thank you guys so much. I'm not even going to tell you how to support the podcast. I want you to go and support Doctors Without Borders and support GDQ as a whole. Speedrunning from the master of sport himself. It is a sport. It is the first esport we have covered on the podcast. There's skill, there's athleticism, there's strategy, there's repeatability, and there are world record holders, which means there are world champions. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.